All right, time for homework. Let's get our books open to page 73, which is the beginning of chapter 7. Take a moment. It's a really short reading today, just 4 quick pages. So while you're flipping there, as your homework page says, it says to annotate for evidence of how Animal Farm hopes to appear to the outside world. So that just means, what do they want other people, other farms to think of when they think about Animal Farm? Do they want them to think that they're scary, or that they're nice, or that they're good or fair or successful or whatever? So you're thinking about what they want others to feel. Here we go, chapter 7. It was a bitter winter. The stormy weather was followed by sleet and snow, and then by a hard frost which did not break till well into February. The animals carried on as best they could with the rebuilding of the windmill, well knowing that the outside world was watching them and that the envious human beings would rejoice and triumph if the mill were not finished on time. Out of spite, the human beings pretended not to believe that it was Snowball who had destroyed the windmill. They said it had fallen down because the walls were too thin. The animals knew that this was not the case. Still, it had been decided to build the walls 3 feet thick this time, instead of 18 inches as before, which meant collecting much larger quantities for stone. For a long time, the quarry was full of snowdrifts and nothing could be done. Some progress was made in the dry, frosty weather that followed, but it was cruel work, and the animals could not feel so hopeful about it as they had felt before. They were always cold and usually hungry as well. Only Boxer and Clover never lost heart. Squealer had made excellent speeches on the joy of service and the dignity of labor, but the other animals found more inspiration in Boxer's strength and his never-failing cry of, "I will work harder." In January, food fell short. The corn ration was drastically reduced, and it was announced that an extra potato ration would be issued to make up for it. Then it was discovered that the greater part of the potato crop had been frosted in the clamps, which had not been covered thickly enough, and the potatoes had become soft and discolored, and only a few were edible. For days at a time, the animals had nothing to eat except for chaff and mangles. Starvation seemed to stare them in the face. It was vitally necessary to conceal this fact from the outside world. Emboldened by the collapse of the windmill, the human beings were inventing fresh lies about Animal Farm. Once again, it was being put about that all the animals were dying of famine and disease, and that they were continually fighting amongst themselves and had restored to cannibalism and infanticide. Napoleon was well aware of the bad results that might follow if the real facts of the food situation were known, and he decided to make use of Mr. Whymper to spread a contrary impression. Hitherto, the animals had had little or no contact with Whymper on his weekly visits. Now, however, a few selected animals, mostly sheep, were instructed to remark casually in his hearing that rations had been increased. In addition, Napoleon ordered the almost empty bins in the store shed to be filled nearly to the brim with sand, which was then covered up with what remained of the grain and meal. On some suitable pretext, Whymper was led through the store shed and allowed to catch a glimpse of the bins. He was deceived and continued to report to the outside world that there was no food shortage on Animal Farm. Nevertheless, towards the end of January, it became obvious that it would be necessary to procure some more grain from somewhere. In these days, Napoleon rarely appeared in public, but spent all his time in the farmhouse, which was guarded at each door by fierce-looking dogs. When he did emerge, it was in a ceremonial manner, with an escort of 6 dogs who closely surrounded him and growled if anyone came too near. Frequently, he did not even appear on Sunday mornings, but issued his orders through one of the other pigs, usually Squealer. One Sunday morning, Squealer announced that the hens, who had just come in to lay eggs, must surrender their eggs. Napoleon had accepted through Whymper a contract for 400 eggs a week. The price of these would pay for enough grain and meal to keep the farm going till summer came on and conditions were easier. When the hens heard this, they raised a terrible outcry. They had been warned earlier that this sacrifice might be necessary, but had not believed that it would really happen. They were just getting their clutches ready for the spring sitting, and they protested that to take the eggs away now was murder. For the first time since the expulsion of Jones, there was something resembling a rebellion. Led by 3 young black Minorca pullets, these are types of chickens, the hens made a determined effort to thwart Napoleon's wishes. Their method was to fly up to the rafters and lay their eggs, which smashed to pieces on the floor. Napoleon acted swiftly and ruthlessly. He ordered that the hens' rations to be stopped and decreed that any animal giving so much as a grain of corn to a hen should be punished by death. The dogs saw to it that these orders were carried out. For 5 days, the hens held out. They then capitulated and went back to their nesting boxes. 9 hens had died in the meantime. Their bodies were buried in the orchard, and it was given out that they died of coccidosis, which is a disease. Whymper heard nothing of this affair, and the eggs were duly delivered, a grocer's van driving up to the farm once a week to take them away. I'm going to pause there. And then I'm going to do something different this time. I'm actually going to read the questions for your homework as well so that you can replay this or go back and have it play each time you're ready for one of those questions. So I'm going to go ahead and read them all. And then if you need to repeat, you can go backwards and have it play again. Number 1 of your homework said, who or what do the animals believe destroyed the windmill? You can go back to the beginning of this chapter to find that answer. Who or what do the humans believe destroyed the windmill? Number 2, how was the morale, or that means like the emotional state of the animals changed? What's the vibe? How are they doing? How has the morale or the emotional state of the animals changed? Number 3, what major problem surfaces for the animals at the beginning of chapter 7? Think about what the key words are here in that question. What major problem surfaces for the animals at the beginning of chapter 7? A, the animals do not have enough raw materials to construct the windmill. B, some animals refuse to complete work on the second windmill. C, animals begin suffering from frostbite in the cold winter months. Or D, the animals begin to run out of food after their potato crop fails. Number 4, explain how the animals conceal their troubles from Mr. Whymper. The word conceal means to hide. So explain how the animals conceal or hide their troubles from Mr. Whymper. And lastly, number 5, what unpopular new resolution gets passed? Do the animals conform immediately? You can use your vocabulary page in your binder to look up those 2 bold words. Again, what unpopular new resolution gets passed or approved? And do the animals conform immediately? All right, see you tomorrow.